All things are possible if you'll only believe. Only believe. Only believe. All things are possible if you'll only believe. Lord, I believe. Lord, I believe. All things are possible if you'll only believe. Only believe. Only believe. All things are possible if you'll only believe. Only believe. Oh, yes. Only believe. All things are possible if you'll only believe. Only believe. Only believe. All things are possible if you'll only believe. Only believe. Only believe. All things are possible if you'll only believe. Only believe. Only believe. All things are possible if you'll only believe. Lord, I believe. Lord, I believe. All things are possible. Lord, I believe. Only believe. Only believe. All things are possible if you'll only believe. Yes. 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 Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Hallelujah. Yes, Lord. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes to your will. Yes to your will. Thank you, Jesus. Yes to your will right now, God. Yes to your will. Yes to your will. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Yes to your will. Yes to your word. Yes to your word. Yes to your word right now, God. Yes to your word. Yes to your word. Yes to your word. Yes to your will. Yes to your will. Thank you, Jesus. Yes to your will. Oh, God, we love you today. Yes to your will. Yes to your will. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Yes to your will. Yes all day. Saying yes all day. Yes all day. Thank you, Jesus. Yes all day. Yes all day. Yes all day. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good. So very good. He's so good. Excuse me. He's so good. He has been so good to me. I love the Lord. and I won't take it back. I love the Lord, and I won't take it back. I love the Lord, and I won't take it back. He has been so good to me. He's so good. He's so good. Good morning. He's so good. So very good. He's so good. He's so good. He has been so good to me. I love the Lord, and I won't take it back. I love the Lord, and I won't take it back. I love the Lord, and I won't take it back. He has been so good to me. He's so good. He's so good. Yes, he is. He's so good. Hey, State of the Horizon. He's so very good. He's so good. He's so good. He has been so good to me. I'll testify, and I won't take it back. I'll testify, and I won't take it back. I'll testify, and I won't take it back. He has been so good to me. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good. So very good. He's so good. He's so good. He has been so good to me. I'll praise his name, and I won't take it back. I'll praise his name, and I won't take it back. I'll praise his name, and I won't take it back. He has been so good to me. We thank God for you joining us this morning. I want to get right into the word today because I was studying on something on yesterday, and the Lord gave me a new revelation and showed me something. It's in the word. I've read it before, but I just didn't read it this way. The Lord showed it to me yesterday, and it took me aback. It made me pause when I read it. We were doing a study in the word in the book of Matthew, and we're going to go back to this particular scripture in Matthew, the 9th chapter, and around the 19th verse. That's where we're going to start this morning. And we're going to cover a verse in Mark, the 5th chapter, the 22nd verse, basically on the same topic. Let's see, on Matthew, the 9th chapter, and the 18th verse, I think it's where we're going to start today. Okay, here we go. Jesus is on his way through the city. And while he spake these things unto them, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshipped him, saying, My daughter is even now dead. I want you to hear that. Jesus is talking to this man. His name is Jairus. He said, My daughter is even now dead, but come and lay thy hands upon her, and she shall live. That's what Jesus said. That's what the man said to Jesus. He said, while he yet spake these things unto them, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshiped him, saying, My daughter is even now dead. So that seems to say to me that this man's daughter was very sick. And as she was dying, he went to go get help. Perhaps she even died. For he said, she is even now dead. That's just what he said when he came to Jesus. While he yet spake these things unto him, behold, there came a certain ruler, who worshiped him, saying, My daughter is even now dead. He knew she was dying. He knew or perhaps she already had just expired. But unwilling to accept the fact that his daughter was dead, or was going to remain dead, and when she died, he went to go get Jesus, because he believed that Jesus could heal his daughter and bring her back to life. And this is what he said. While he yet spake these things unto him, behold, came a certain ruler and worshiped him, saying, My daughter is even now dead. He acknowledges that his daughter is dead. But come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. So he was expecting Jesus. He knew that Jesus could raise her even from the dead. He knew that God had that kind of power, and he believed that Jesus would raise his daughter from the dead. I'm reminded of the Old Testament scripture. Hey there, how you doing? That was an Old Testament scripture where this woman had no child. Her and her husband would often prepare a little place they would give the prophet a place to lodge whenever he come through town. Well, she decided we should build him a little place so he can have a place so he can rest whenever he comes through town. And because of this act of kindness, he decided, what could I do for this woman? And he saw that she had no child and her husband was old. So he prayed to God that he would give her a son. And God gave her a son. And she was very happy with that son that God had blessed her with. But one day, while her husband was working out in the field, her son died. This son that she loved died. And she sent to her servants to go saddle up the beast so she could go to the prophet. And while she's going to the prophet, her husband saw her going, said, where are you going? She said, I'm going to see the prophet. She said, well, it's not the Sabbath, it's not the high day. She's going to see the prophet. And when she went to see the prophet's servant saw her coming afar off. He said, what does that woman want? And he sent his servant to go see what she wants. Asked her if all is well with her husband, all is well with her child. She said, all is well. When her husband saw her getting ready to go to see the prophet, she said, is all well? She said, all is well. Her son is laying there on the bed dead, but she's going to see the prophet because her son is dead and she's going to see the prophet. And when she got to the prophet, she fell at his feet. And the man was going to forbid her and make her get up and go away. But he said, can't you leave her alone? Can't you see that she's in great grief? And God has hid this from me. And then she told the prophet what was wrong. She said, did I ever ask you for anything? Hey, good morning. It's morning here. God bless you. He said, I didn't ask you for anything, but you gave me this child and now he's dead. So when the prophet went into the house, he went home with her and went to the house. When he saw the child laying there on the bed dead, he stretched upon the child several times, just hugged him and stretched upon him and brought the child back to life. She knew that the prophet could do something for her child, so she went to the prophet. When her husband asked her, what's wrong? She said, all is well. When the prophet asked her, she said, all is well, because this woman had faith. She believed that God was going to do something because this child shouldn't be dead. And she looked to the prophet, and he was grieved in spirit, and he went to there, and he laid upon that child. He stretched upon him, and God brought the child back to life. So Jairus, this man who came to Jesus, said, my daughter is now dead, is even now dead. But he said, come and lay your hands upon her, and she shall live. He had this experience. He had this knowledge of God, knowing that God could raise one even from the dead. So while she had just died, he came to Jesus that Jesus might bring her back to life. He said, if you'll come and lay your hands on her, she shall live and not die. That's what he said here. Now let's go to Mark, the 5th chapter, and read the same thing, basically. But it's said a little different in the book of Mark. Let's read how it says there. Mark 5 and 22. Let's see, Mark 5 and 22, I believe it is, says, and behold, there come one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. See, here they told his name. His name was Jairus. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. He said she was at the point of death. He didn't say that she was dead here or now is dead, but say it's at the point of death. And I guess, as they say, people aren't dead until they pronounce dead officially. You have to have a certain person to pronounce someone dead. Not everyone is qualified to pronounce somebody dead. Jairus didn't feel that he was qualified to pronounce her dead, although he saw no signs of life in her. And he said she is now at the point of death. Or he said in Matthew, it says, he said she is now dead. Let's see how he reads it in Matthew. He says, my daughter is even now dead, past tense, not dying, not at the point of death, but he said is even now dead. So she had just died. And he said, my daughter is even now dead. That's what he said in Matthew, the 9th chapter and 18th verse. But here in Mark, the 5th chapter and the 22nd verse, it says, and behold, then cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. He says she's at the point of death. That's the way this writer says it. but she could have been dead. But the fact is, and the other writers say she is dead. But he says it this way because the father yet had hope, and he was looking to Jesus to come and heal his daughter. In both cases, he was looking for Jesus to come and raise her up and to heal her. So Jesus, he was looking, in both cases, he's looking for the same thing. He's looking for Jesus to heal his daughter. That's the essence of the story. He came to Jesus. Jesus might heal her and raise her up. I pray thee come and lay thy hand on her, and she may be healed, and she shall live. So he believed that. Now this gives more detail here than it does in Matthew. While he spake these things unto them, behold, it came a certain ruler and worshiped him, saying, my daughter is even now dead, but come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. And it said, and Jesus arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. Says pretty much the same thing over here in Mark 5 and 24. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. So it's the same story. We can tell that. People talk about the harmony of the Gospels. Yes, they tell the same story, but it's slightly different because each of us perceive things in slightly different ways. We hear things in slightly different ways. The scripture says, take heed to yourselves, to what you hear and how you hear things. See, we hear things and we think things, and sometimes we're just wrong. This man recognized that his daughter was dead. He said, my daughter is even now dead. He knew that she may have breathed his last breath when he was there, but he immediately got ready and got gone to go get Jesus. And probably the people at the house looked around and wondered where his Jairus gone. And somebody told him he went to see Jesus. Well, his daughter just died and the father's done left. You know, when people are experiencing grief, they handle it in different ways. I'm remembering when my wife's grandmother died. She had a heart attack and they thought she was doing better. And a lot of times, just before people expire, they get better. She talked to people and everything, and she did pretty good the last night of her life. And we were going to see her that next day, and my wife and her twin sister, they were talking about how that they was concerned, that they had a scare concerning their grandmother, and you know they were hopeful that they'd have some more months with her. And as we were going to see them, I told them, I said, y'all need to be preparing yourself for the short time. Because that night before, while I was visiting with her grandmother, I saw death upon her. I could tell from the way she talked, this woman was setting her final affairs in order. She wasn't going to be with us long. And I knew that. And I was telling them they need to prepare themselves for that. And as soon as we got to the hospital almost, she had another heart attack. And she was dying. And they were debating whether to put her on what they call the ECMO machine to keep her heart and lungs and everything functioning, to try to help her stay a little longer, to give the family members time to say goodbye before they let all of the heart and functioning cease. But she was dying. It was nothing going to bring her back to life, nothing going to heal her or make her better. The woman was nearly 90 years old. She was very old. So it was nothing going to bring her back to life. She was dying. That was a fact. She was dying. Nothing could be done there. She was dying. Nothing could be done. So they were debating that, and I tried to tell them, and so they while they were debating whether to hook up to the machine, she expired. And as soon as this happened, my wife, she left. I was trying to console other members of the family, talk to the helper, but my wife had left. She done walked down the hallway. So she couldn't handle it at that time. She was just in a state of disbelief. I can understand that. When someone dies, people handle it differently. You know, instead of me being able to console her, she walked away. And so she walked away. And then I had to go find her. And when I went to find her and stuff, my brother-in-law was trying to console my wife, which kind of bothered me a little bit. But the fact is, she done walked away. He went to try to find her to console her. people handle things differently, grief differently. Sometimes people, they'll attack each other. Sometimes they don't come together. Sometimes they go apart. Sometimes people just can't handle it. They just want to get away from everybody. Well, they didn't know where Jairus had went. And so the people came to find Jairus. In the book of Matthew, it doesn't say that. It just says Jesus went, and when they went, that woman, she had an issue of blood. She touched Jesus. She was healed and delivered. And then Jesus went straight from there, right on to Jairus' house. It doesn't talk about anybody saying or doing anything else different. That Jesus healed the woman. It just says as soon as this woman was healed. Let's read this in Matthew. Let's go ahead and read this whole story together so you can understand what I'm talking about. I know the story, so let me read it so you'll understand it as well. Let me read the 18th all the way down through the 24th, down through the 25th verse. Let me read from the 18th down through the 24th verse, or 25th verse. It says, and while he spake these things unto them, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshiped him, saying, my daughter is even now dead. But come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may touch his garment, I shall be whole. But Jesus turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour. And when Jesus came into the ruler's house and saw the minstrels and the people making a noise, he said unto them, give place, for the maid is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn. But when the people were put forth, he went in and took her by the hand, and the maid arose, and the fame hereof went abroad into all that land. Now let's go back and talk about these a little bit here. See, this is what I'm saying. People perceive things in different ways. Jared watched his daughter, I believe, take her last breath. He knew his daughter was dead. But Jairus had faith, and he believed if he could get to Jesus, that Jesus would heal her, raise her up. He watched her take what he believed to be her last breath. For he said when he got to Jesus, he said, my daughter is even now dead. He's saying she just died. Lord, my daughter has just died. She's dead. But come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. He had faith to believe that Jesus could raise her from the dead and heal her. And that's why he went to Jesus. When it looked like all hope is lost, Jairus said, let me go find Jesus. And he went to find Jesus. While she was living, they did all they could for her, to help her, to comfort her, to help her get better. But once she was dead, and this is what he said, my daughter is even now dead. Now she's died. There's no more I can do for her. She needs direct intervention from God. And the only one he knew could help his daughter at this point was Jesus. So when his daughter died, as long as there was anything he could do, he did all he could for his daughter. But when she died, he knew there was no more he could do. When he watched her take her last breath, he went to find Jesus. And when he found Jesus, he said, my daughter is even now dead. He said she just died. But come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. He had faith in God that if he could just get to Jesus, and once he got to Jesus, he fell down and worshiped him, and he said, my daughter is now even dead. But if you come and you lay your hand upon her, she shall live. She shall be healed and she shall live. Jesus, he knew that much. But there was a woman who had a more even a pressing issue as well. She had been suffering with an issue of blood for 12 long years, and she decided within herself, if I can just but touch the hem of Jesus' garment, she believed she could be made whole. And so she reached out and touched Jesus. She touched him. Are you willing to touch the Lord today and feel his power and know what he can do in your life? This woman touched Jesus. Jairus, when his daughter died, he knew that Jesus had the power to raise his daughter even from the dead. And so he came and found Jesus. He fell at his feet and worshiped him. He said, Lord, he said, Master, my daughter is now, even now dead. But come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. And so Jesus arose and went with him. But while he was on his way going, this woman who had the issue of blood, she touched him. And she said, if I touch his hem, I shall be made whole. But Jesus turned him about. And when he saw her, he said, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Now, see, I like the way this particular passage of scripture describes it because it deals with the people's faith. It deals with Jesus' immediate response to both cases. It left out all the other stuff, some of it, and I'm not saying it didn't happen, but this writer chose to focus on the positive. That this man whose daughter was at the point of death or had just died came to Jesus and said to him, Lord, said to Jesus, my daughter is now dead. He recognized she was dead. He said, even now my daughter is dead. My daughter is even now dead. He knew she was dead or she was dying when he left, and he knew she was now dead. He knew this. This is what this scripture says. But come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. And he rose and followed him. And so did his disciples. And then it says, and behold, while they was on their way, behold, this woman came. It was diseased with an issue of blood, 12 years, and came behind him, touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may touch his garment, I shall be made whole. Now it says, but Jesus turned him about when he saw her, said, daughter, behold, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Jesus just said to her, your faith is what healed you because you believe. But what it says in the book of Mark, and it's not to cast any kind of disparaging against them or the writers here, but somebody saw it a little differently. They heard it a little different. Maybe they heard something a little differently. Mark 5:22. And we'll read on down through it all that, show you how it's different. They call it the harmony of the gospel, but it's also the difference of the gospel. That's why sometimes people think maybe it's no, it's the same story, but it's seen through different people's eyes. People see things a little differently. Sometimes people understand things a little differently. But let's get a good understanding today of what is really said here. From Mark 5:22, and behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. When he saw him, he fell at his feet. Same story, see? And besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter. Now they say little daughter. She was little, but he said, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. He said she lies at the point of death. Well, if she's at the point of death, she could have easily died or she may have died. But they saying he said she lied at the point of death. Perhaps because he had accepted that fact. He saw her breathe her last breath. But the other writer said, he said, my daughter is now, even now dead. The other writer said he recognized his daughter was dead. But this one here is basically the same thing. It said, I pray thee, come and lay thy hands upon her, and she may be healed, and she shall live. So he's saying if you lay your hands upon her, she shall be healed, and she shall live. He's still acknowledging here that Jesus has the power to heal and deliver his daughter. So in both cases, it's saying the same thing about what he believed Jesus could do for his daughter. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. So it says there was a crowd of people all around. Now, it didn't say nothing about the crowd. It just said the woman touched the hem of his garment. So this explains why the woman would have had difficulty reaching Jesus, She couldn't confront him directly. She could just barely get close enough to touch the hem of his garment because of a throng of people. There was way too many people around. She couldn't get close to Jesus. She just barely was able to touch the hem of his garment, and she was healed. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood for 12 years. So see, it tells you it's the same woman because it had the issue of blood for 12 years in both cases. And had suffered many things of the physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but grew worse. So it says she grew worse as a result of things the physician did for her and whatnot. But that really wasn't important to the whole story. But this is just filling in some different details. Perhaps these people learned these details later and they wrote the story a little differently, or they remembered a little differently, or whatever. But it says, it gives these details about what the woman was doing and what the woman went through. But when she heard that Jesus came, of Jesus, came in the press behind him and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch his clothes, I shall be made whole. And straightway the fountain of blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she had been healed of that plague by touching him of his garment. And Jesus immediately knew, knowing in himself that the virtue had gone out of him, turned about in the press and said, who touched me? Now, I don't doubt this happened. I believe it did. But see, in Matthew, it didn't even mention anything about this, that he turned and asked, who touched me? Didn't say that. It just said what Jesus said to her in response. He said, who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? Why would you ask who touched me with so many people around? Anybody could have touched you. And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. So they left out this part of the detail, but Jesus, and they did say what he said to her. And he said unto her, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of the plague. So it's pretty much the same thing. He said, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. So he told her her faith had made her whole. In both cases, it said, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace. And he told her to go in peace. He just, in Matthew, he just said, daughter, thy faith has made thee whole. He didn't say go in peace. But he let her know, you can go in peace and be whole of the plague. So he had healed and made her whole. And then it says here, which it didn't say it in Matthew, it says, while he yet spake, there came from the ruler of synagogue house, certain which said, thy daughter is dead. Why troublest the master any further? Now, maybe that's why Jairus left. Jairus may have just left before she died, knowing that she was dying. He went to go get help. He wasn't prepared to accept the fact that his daughter was dead. And he went to go get Jesus, find Jesus. And when they knew she was dead, when they got convinced she was dead, then they looked around and didn't find Jairus, and they went to get Jesus. They knew Jairus and went to go get Jesus. And once they were convinced she was dead, they went to go get Jairus and tell him, why are you troubling the master? Your daughter is dead now. Leave him alone. No point in coming to him now. She is dead. Jairus went before they had pronounced her dead, and before all of them realized she was dead. He went to go get help. Because he said, if I can get to Jesus, Jesus can heal her. Jesus can raise her even from the dead. And Jairus knew she was dying or had died. Because he said in Matthew, he said, my daughter is even now dead. He knew she was dying if she wasn't dead when he left. And he knew by this time she is dead. He said, even now is dead. He said, but come and lay thy hand upon her. He told Jesus, he said, my daughter even now is dead. This is what Jairus told Jesus. He said, my daughter is even now dead. He told Jesus that his daughter is dead. I hadn't read it that way or paid attention to it until people was talking about it, and they was preaching the message all wrong about the woman, blaming the woman for Jairus' daughter dying and all that. But then I read here in Matthew 9:18, it says, my daughter is even now dead. So her father recognized his daughter was dead. By the time he got to Jesus, he knew she was dead. He knew she was dying, and he said, she's even now dead. Because he knew from her what he had seen that either she was dead or she was dying as he was leaving. And the only hope she had was in Jesus. And I'm telling you today, our hope is in Jesus. Jesus can bring us back to life. Jesus can restore whatever the enemy has done to us if we'll trust in him and come to him, surrender it all to him. This is what this man did. He came to find Jesus. He came to find the only hope he knew that could help her, and it was Jesus. He knew his daughter was dying or dead. He said, she is even now dead. He told Jesus she's dead. Jesus could say, well, what can I do for her? If she dead, go bury her. But no, he said she's now dead. But if you will come and lay your hands on her, she will live. And Jesus immediately arose and followed him. So did his disciples. This man has told him his daughter is dead, and Jesus is going to heal her. Jesus is going to raise her from the dead. That's what it says, plain as day. He said, my daughter is even now dead. Didn't say dying, he said, is even now dead. But he wanted Jesus to come that he might lay his hand on her. As I was just telling you, this woman, when her son died, the prophet had prayed for her, and God gave her a son. And when the son died, she told her husband, she asked him to settle up the beast so she could go to see the prophet. Well, he says, it's not the holy day. It's not high holy day or anything. Why do you want to go see him? He says, all well. It's all well with she said, all's well. Child dead on the bed. But she want to go see the prophet. And when she gets to the prophet, say to the prophet. Well, before she gets to the prophet sees her coming afar off and says, his servant, go see what this woman wants. And he runs to her and asks her, is all well with her husband? All well with the child? She said, all is well. And she continues on to the prophet. And when she gets to the prophet, she falls down at his feet crying. And the man wanted to make her get up. He said, leave her alone. Can't you see she's in distress? And the Lord has hid it from me. And she said, and when he told her, said, well, did I ask you for anything? Me and my husband were just fine, just the two of us. But you saw fit to tell God to give me this child. And now he's given me this child, and now this child is home dead. And when the prophet heard, he made haste to go to the woman's house. He sent his messenger with him. He said the man is a servant. He sent him ahead. He ran ahead of him and told him to lay his staff upon the child and see if the child recovered. That didn't work. So when the prophet got there, he stretched upon him. He hugged him, and he stretched his body upon him, put his hands upon his hands, and a face upon his face. And the child came back to life. But this is what I'm saying. This woman recognized that the prophet could help her child. She didn't accept the fact that he was dead. When her husband asked, is all well with you? Is all well? She said, all is well. The child is dead, and this woman said, all is well. When the prophet's servant came to her saying, is all well with thee, all well with thy husband, all well? She said, all is well. But when she got to the prophet herself, she fell at his feet. And she said, did I ask you for anything? I didn't ask you for nothing. But you told me God was going to give me the son, and now he's dead at home. And God raised that child from the dead. And when Jairus went to go see Jesus, he said, my daughter is even now dead. He knew she was dead, but he also knew Jesus could bring her back to life. That's why he came to see Jesus. Now, over here in Mark, it says Jesus continued on. After he healed this woman, he went on into the house. It just says, like, let me read it here. It says in Luke 9, 9 and 23. And when Jesus came into the ruler's house, let's go back up here to the 22nd verse. And we're going to just read the last part of the 22nd verse. And the woman was made whole from that hour. And when Jesus came into the ruler's house, it doesn't say that Jesus was delayed any by this woman who was healed. It just went right on from there where it said to the woman, and the woman was healed, made whole from that hour. And then it said the next thing it picks up with, and Jesus when Jesus came into the ruler's house. So it was close to the house by the time the woman was healed, apparently. But it said, and when Jesus came into the house, the ruler's house, and saw the minstrels and the people making a noise. They was making a noise. They were preparing for the funeral. And Jesus said, what is this? He said, give place, for the maid is not dead, but sleepeth. Now, Jesus said she was asleep because he knew he had the power to bring her back to life. Say, she's asleep. And they laughed him to scorn. But Jesus then put them out and went in and took her by the hand, and the maid arose. Now, that's the end of that story, the way they tell it. But it makes it more interesting the way Mark described it, because in the book of Mark, they put some details in it that was left out in the book of Matthew. But the importance of the story is the same. The meat of the story is the same in both cases. It's just Mark's makes it a little bit more colorful, perhaps. But the book of Matthew gives you the essence of everything you need to know. It gives you all the important details. And actually, I like the way the book of Matthew describes it better because it's a more concise story. It didn't give no fluff. It gave the facts and the details that are important to salvation. And it actually made it even more clear because what it did for me, and Mark doesn't do that. Mark says, let me read how he described the situation with the daughter in the book of Mark. And people who read that think that most people read it and think that Jairus thought his daughter was alive, or think she's nearly at the point of death, but like she's still alive. Let's read it. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers, from Mark 5 and 22. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. When he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. Say she lieth at the point of death. What does that mean if somebody's lying at the point of death? If she was lying at the point of death when he left and he had to go find Jesus, it would be logical to say that she's dead now, probably. If somebody's at the point of death, how long is the point of death? The point of death isn't a long, protracted period of time. You can be sick and dying, but not at the point of death. When you're at the point of death, that means you are moments away, or a minute or two away, or you are going to expire at any second. That's what the point of death would mean. At the point of death, or the hour of your death, at the point of death would be like saying at the hour of your death. Well, if she had an hour to live, or 30 minutes to live, Jairus knew from the time that he left until then that she is dead. And that's what it says in Mark and Matthew 19. Excuse me, Mark 9 and 18. It says, while he spake, they came unto him, saying, behold, there came a certain ruler unto him, worshiping him, saying, my daughter is even now dead. He says she's dead because he knew from the time he had walked from his house and got to Jesus, he knew that she was going to be dead when he got back if she wasn't already dead. He says she is even now dead. He knew this, that his daughter was dead. That's what Matthew tells us. He knows it. He said, my daughter is even now dead. He told Jesus his daughter is dead. He said, but if you come and lay your hands on her, she shall live. She shall be healed and she shall live. This is what he told Jesus. She's dead, but I know you can raise her up. Now, the people in the book of Mark says to him, After they finally get to him and everything, let's read. It's so drawn out in the book of Mark. It's got several verses to tell the story. Let's see how many verses it says here. It's lots of verses. And this is where people get bogged down. You give too many background things. It makes it nice. If you're writing a movie or something, yeah, you'd make me need these kind of details. Or you writing a story, whatever. But if you just want to know the facts are spelled out better. I like the way they spelled out better in Mark the ninth chapter. Matthew the ninth chapter. I like the way it describes these two stories. It makes it more concise. It brings them together so you understand exactly what happened much better. This man came to Jesus saying his daughter's now at the point of death. He asked Jesus to come and lay his hand on her so she might live. And Jesus immediately followed him and started on his way. But as he's on his way, this woman encountered him. She done decided within her heart if she could touch him as a garment, she be made whole. She touched him as a garment, she made whole. And Jesus went straight on to Jairus' house. And when he came into the house, he saw people making a bunch of noise. He said, the damsel is asleep. And they laughed him to scorn. And Jesus went in the house and healed her, raised her from the dead. That's the story. That's both stories. Much more concise. But when you get to reading over here in the book of Mark, let's see how many verses do they use to describe this whole thing. They from Mark, the 5th chapter, the 22nd verse, all the way through to the 34th verse. It's talking about that woman who had the issue of blood. After it initially 5:22 and 23 is about Jairus and his daughter. From 24 on, Jesus is on his way, and this woman at 25th verse, all the way down through the 34th verse is about the woman who had the issue of blood and all of her, if she could touch the hem of his garment, all that. It deals with all that. It's a very important story, and I'm glad that he gave us the details of this. And that's the background. That's the fill in all the other stuff. But in Matthew, it tells us what happened about these two people, and it ties it together in such a way that I like the way it ties it together, because it helps you to understand that this man's daughter, Jairus' daughter, was dead, and Jesus went to heal her and raise her up, and he did that. But before he could heal her and raise her up, there was a woman who had the issue of blood. He touched the hem of his garment. She didn't really stop him going to Jairus' house. He touched the hem of his garment. She was made whole. And then Jesus went straight from there into Jairus' house and healed and raised his daughter. That's what we need to understand. There was no delay. It was no hindrance on the part of the woman. There was no delay or procrastination on the part of Jesus to go heal this child. Just like it was no hesitation that the woman was immediately healed when she touched the hem of his garment. These things happened that way. They happened. And we need to understand it just straight up happened that way. God moves that way. And I tell you, it's wonderful what God does and how he does things. Oh, we bless his name today. Okay, mind's mouth. Okay. Jesus healed a girl. Okay. I've heard that before. People say I look like Lionel Richie, Jerome. I heard that before. I don't think I look that much like him, but I think as a compliment, I kind of like it. He's one of my favorite singers of all time. I posted one of his videos to my short, Say You, Say Me, and it received about 34,000 views. I think maybe because people saw to see that as a resemblance, they may wonder if I was a relative or something. That may have helped. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's. But you say who touched who? That was a woman. Let's go back in case you didn't hear it. It's found in the chapter of Matthew, the 9th chapter. What we're talking about when this mind's mouth. Are you still there? Okay, because I want to give you that information and where you want to find that. It's in Mark, the ninth chapter, Matthew, the 19th chapter. Excuse me, not the 19th chapter. Matthew, the ninth chapter, Matthew, the ninth chapter. And there was this woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years. It's in Matthew, the ninth chapter, and the 20th verse. Behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may touch the hem of his garment, I shall be whole. But Jesus turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. So that's where you find it there. Man's mouth. This woman touched Jesus' garment. She didn't even touch his body. She was able to just touch the hem of his garment, and she was made whole. That's where it's found in Matthew 9 and 20 through 22. Matthew 19, 20 through 22. And then it's also contained in the book of Mark, verses. Same thing about this woman, gives even more detail about her issues and how she was healed and what happened to her. It's that's in Mark. It's the Mark 5:25 through 34. You find that same story. So that's where you can find that and get the benefit of that story. But I'm going to say this, that we see things differently sometimes. That's what we're talking about. People can see the same story or have the same situation, they see it differently. So the Bible tells us, take heed to what you hear. Sometimes we hear things differently. We see things differently. Take heed to what you hear, what you see, how you think about things. And so be open-minded so you can see the truth and the relevance of things. I've been studying the Bible since I was a teenager. And I just realized on today that there was a difference in these two stories, or yesterday, whatever. There's a difference between these two stories, a little bit of difference, but it's the same story. But Jairus recognized that his daughter was dead or was dying. He was not surprised that his daughter died. They made it sound like he was surprised when the servants came to him and said, why troublest thou the master? Your daughter is dead. Jairus already knew she was dead. It says it in Matthew, the 9th chapter. It says, my daughter is now dead. Even now, my daughter is even now dead. He said he knew she was dead. He said, but if you will come and lay your hands on her, she shall be healed, she shall live. He came to Jesus to raise her from the dead. He knew. She hadn't suffered corruption yet. She hadn't started to stink or nothing yet. Her body was still warm. She had just died. And while she was still warm, he wanted Jesus to come and heal her. He believed that, matter of fact, somebody say something about that. People aren't considered dead until they've been dead for 3 days, or once they've been dead for 2 or 3 days, then you know for sure they're dead or something. They were saying like the reason they would break people's legs when they took them from the cross, in case they wasn't fully dead, they wouldn't be able to crawl out or something. So they break the legs or something, make sure, whatever, I don't know. So that's why I say that none of Jesus' bones were broken, because they discovered he was already dead. If he hadn't been dead, they'd have broke his bones and put him in the tomb, I guess, or buried him anyway. You heard the expression buried alive. I guess they break people's legs and bury them alive and let them finish dying in the grave. I don't know. It's kind of weird, I think. But anyway, that kind of concludes what I wanted to say to you this morning. I wanted to just help you to understand, as the Lord helped me to understand, that we can look at things a little differently and we can see things a little differently. But Jairus recognized that his daughter was dead. He said, even now, my daughter is dead. But they made it sound like in the other stories. Well, I don't know that they made it sound like that so much, because it said in even Mark, it said, that she is at the point of death. So if she's at the point of death, and he recognized she's at the point of death when he left, by the time they got there, she's going to be dead. And so the people came to tell Jairus that your daughter is dead. Let me see if it says it in Mark, the 5th chapter. Because I think it probably says it in other gospel a little different, probably from Mark. Let's see if that was different. Let's see. No, it says what I was talking about. It says it here in it says it here in Mark 5:35 through 36. While he yet spake, he was talking to the woman, God, that she had been healed. Jesus told her, daughter, thy faith has made thee whole, in the 34th verse. And while he spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? Now, she might have been at the point of death when he left, and now she's dead for sure. They convinced her she's dead. They all done gave up hope. All the people at the house have given up hope. But Jairus hadn't given up hope. Jairus came to find Jesus. And the scripture tells us in Matthew, it says, when he came to Jesus, he said, my daughter is now dead. So he recognized that his daughter would be dead time they got there. He said to Jesus, he said, my daughter even now is dead. But if you come and lay your hands on her, she shall live. So he came to Jesus to heal her, to raise her from the dead. He recognized by the time they got there that she was going to be dead. And the people from his house came after they realized he was gone. They came looking for him. They found that he came to see Jesus. So they came to tell him, well, she's now dead. You don't need to trouble Jesus anymore. But he knew that she was going to be dead when he got there. So he came to find help. The only help he knew could help her was Jesus. And he looking for Jesus to raise her from the dead. He came to Jesus so he could raise her from the dead. And so that's what he went to Jesus for. So Jesus would heal her and raise her from the dead. Well, they twist that cow. I've heard people twist it as if he didn't know Jesus could raise her from the dead, as if he didn't believe that Jesus would raise her from the dead. He came expecting and believing Jesus would raise her from the dead. And so they say, when they spake, when while he yet spake, there came from the ruler's house of synagogue certain which said unto him, thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? And so as soon as Jesus heard the words was spoken, he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, be not afraid. Well, that's great that Jesus said that here, be not afraid. I don't think Jairus was afraid, but they was trying to make him afraid, I guess. They done come to him, but before he could hear these people tell him his daughter was dead, Jairus left to go get Jesus because he knew Jesus could raise her from the dead. And Jairus may have left just before she took her last breath. She may not have been dead when he left. And when they said in Mark, he said to Jesus, he said, my daughter. At the time when he got to Jesus, he may have known, and he said, let's read it. Mark 5:23, and besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. So he knew she was laying there dying. So he didn't tell Jesus she is now dead. He said she's dying, or she's at the point of death. So by the time they get there, she may be dead, if she wasn't already. And Jairus knew this. He wasn't concealing it from Jesus. He said she's at the point of death. So oftentimes when people, if you at the point of death, that means you're going to die. She probably died as soon as he walked away. He said she's at the point of death. He didn't say she's dying. It didn't say she's grievously ill. He said she's at the point of death. If you're at the point of death don't last long. She was dead. That's what he said in Matthew. It says, my daughter is even now dead. But if you come lay your hands on her, she shall live. So he knew this. But I pray thee, come and lay thy hands upon her, and she may be healed, and she shall live. He said she should live in both cases. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed. So all this was happening. But when and they told him, because people try. I think what it is that what these people came to Jairus for, they was trying to get him to accept the fact his daughter was dead. Jairus knew his daughter was dying, so Jairus went to go find Jesus. Somebody could heal his daughter. Somebody could help and deliver his daughter. That's what he went to Jesus for. He went to find somebody could heal his daughter, raise her from the dead. That's what he went to find, some help for his daughter. That's what he went for, was to get help for his daughter. He was committed to getting the help his daughter needed. He didn't wait around. If his daughter was dead, when he left as soon as he realized she was dying or died. As soon as she dead or was dying, he recognized she was dying. He went to go get help. When he saw she was dying or right after she died, he immediately went to get help. He wasn't trying to prepare funeral arrangements. He went to go get somebody to raise her from the dead. He went to go get Jesus to help his daughter. And when the people got to wondering, because they say they done call the minstrels, when he got there, they done call the minstrels, they making it a big to-do. They was preparing a funeral party. And they probably looked around and said, where's her daddy? Well, somebody told him he went to go find Jesus. When they people realize she is dead, they around there making a hoop to do about it, preparing for her death and getting ready to bury her. They heard that her daddy is off trying to go get Jesus to heal her. And they came to tell him that your daughter is dead. Don't trouble Jesus no more. She dead. Like ain't nothing she can do. But Jairus knew that Jesus could heal her. Jairus said, and that's what well, he said in both cases, he said, if you lay your hands on her, she shall be healed. She shall live and not die. She'll live. He came to Jesus to heal her. They came to tell him, don't bother him no more. But he, in both cases, recognized Jesus could heal her and lift her up. But they told him, forget about it. She's dead. And Jesus said, be not afraid, only believe. Jesus told him, don't be afraid. Don't listen to them. In other words, that's what Jesus really was saying to him. He said, don't listen to them. You was right to come to me. I can help your daughter. He said, don't listen to them. That's what he's saying, really. When he say, be not afraid, don't listen to their fears. They're trying to pump fear into you, make you doubt, make you disbelieve. You came to me in faith. He said, be not afraid. Don't let them put fear in your heart. Don't let them bring doubt into your mind. He said, only believe. You can't believe and continue to believe. Continue to trust. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter, James, and John, and the brother of James. And he cometh into the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeing the tumult, and they that wept and wailed greatly, and when he was come in, he said unto them, why you make this ado, and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. So you see there. So if Jairus did say she's at the point of death, he wasn't accepting the fact she was dead. He felt like she was asleep or she could be healed or brought back to life. But in both cases, he said that. He said, but my daughter is even now dead. He said, but come and lay your hands on her and she shall live. He knew that Jesus had the power to raise her up and to help her stand. And that's what we ought to realize today. The Lord has help. The Lord is our help. He is our strength. He is our strong tower. We run into him, we shall be saved. We thank God for you today. Thank God for this word. And thank God for the clarity that he's provided us to know that he can deliver. He will deliver. He will make whole. He will set free. He can raise us even from the dead. And we thank God for that today. And we know that Jesus, as he healed the woman who had the issue of blood, as he healed Jairus' daughter, he can do the same thing for you. I just made me think of a song. It is no secret. Hey there, Aaron, the risen, state of the risen. I sure do. I sure do. Let me see if I can put you on as a moderator, state of the let's see. Okay, I just checked that State of the Risen for my subscribers can be moderators on my channel. I just saw that, so I put it on there so you can be a moderator if you, when you're looking at it, you can help keep my channel clean, straighten out, and give comments. So you there, State of Risen? So I put it on there so subscribers can be moderators on my channel. Thank you for bringing that to mind. And good morning to you, Aaron. God bless all of y'all. So yes, I do meet moderators. Thank you. I appreciate that, State of Risen, because it's so helpful to know that. So now you can help moderate my channel, help keep it clean, and help me out with things I need help with. I tell you, God is so good. I appreciate you guys so much. But we talking about today, I hope y'all all got that this day, because the Lord just shows me the difference between some things that sometimes we read the Bible and we study it for the longest period of time. Like I say, I've been studying the Bible now, Lord have mercy, about 56 years or more on my own. And the Lord just showed me something that I didn't realize, because when you listen to people, other people preach and teach and talk about the Bible, and you hear things certain ways so many times, and you really don't pay attention to some of the smaller details sometimes. But as I say, we was talking about this man Jairus in Matthew the ninth chapter, the 18th verse. It says, "And while he spake these things unto them, behold, there came a certain ruler who worshipped him, saying, My daughter is even now dead." Jairus came to Jesus and said, "My daughter is even now dead." Didn't say she was dying. He said, now she's dead. Even now she's dead. But come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. So he was asking Jesus to come and raise his daughter from the dead. He said, she is even now dead. But if you come and lay your hand on her, she shall live. That's important to know. It says describes the same story in Mark, the 5th chapter, but it says it a little bit different. How does it read it in Mark, the 9th chapter, 22nd verse? It says, "And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. When he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands upon her. She may be healed, and she shall live." Says everything the same, except just a little slightly different in the wording of one part. It says, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. Well, if you're at the point of death, when he left, she probably is dead by now. And that's what the other writer said in Matthew. He said, my daughter is even now dead. If she wasn't dead when he left, she was breathing really heavily. I've been in the room when somebody died. When my wife died back in 2014, before she died, you could hear the laboring of the breathing as she was getting ready to take her last breaths. When people are dying, a lot of time within the last hour or so, the breathing becomes very erratic, slow and irregular. You can hear the breathing and you can tell that death is imminent. Any minute they're going to die. And that's the way it was with her. For an hour or so, you could just tell that her breath became much more shallow and less frequent. And so that was in the last 5 or so minutes, you could tell she was dying. You knew it was going to happen pretty quickly. And when she took her last breath, before she took her last breath, there were times when she didn't breathe for maybe 30 seconds or maybe almost a minute. And then she would take a little breath and but then all of a sudden, after a minute or two, there was no breath. So she was dead. Now that's probably when Jairus left. He was with his daughter as she was breathing very heavily and labored. And then as the breaths became shallower and fewer and farther between, he went to go get Jesus. Before everybody else realized she was dead, he left to go get Jesus. He realized she was dying or at the point of death, and he went to go get Jesus. And he knew by the time he get back, she was going to be dead. And he said to Jesus, he said, my daughter even now is dead. He said, but come and lay your hand on her, she may live. So Jairus knew she was dead. Because he knew by the time he got to Jesus, he knew she was going to be dead if she wasn't already dead when he left. He knew this. And they said in Mark, he said, as at the point of death. And let's see if I can find that where it says the same thing, talks about the same story over in Luke. Let's see what Luke 8:40 says, how it says it. So he recognized it. Luke 8:40. Let's see how it says it. It said it much differently. But I thank God that I realized that today. That okay. 8:41 where it starts to tell. It started at 8:40, the 40th verse, but 8:41 is where it talks about Jairus. Let's see what it says here. Luke 8:41. It says, and behold, there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler of the synagogue, and he fell down at the feet and besought him that he would come into his house. He had one only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying. But as he went, the people thronged him. Okay, so it said maybe Jairus went just as she was dying. As I say, when people are breathing in their last breaths, you can tell they breathe in these heavy labored breaths. Sometimes it may last an hour or two or whatever, but when the person is dying, really truly dying, you can tell within an hour or two they're going to be gone a lot of time. And so that's what they realized. They say she lay at the point of dying. When somebody's dying, you can tell they're dying. Lots of times you can tell that. Unless they've been kept alive by artificial means or assisted to keep breathing, they will be gone within like a little of no time if you allow nature, the natural things to take its course. It says in Luke 8:41, though, it says, and behold, there came a man named Jairus. He was a ruler of the synagogue, and he fell down at Jesus' feet and sought him that he would come into his house. And he had one only daughter, about the age of 12 years of age, and she lay a dying. But as he went, the people thronged him. And a woman had an issue of blood, and it goes on to talk about that. Okay. I'm trying to see if it says it much differently. Okay. Okay. So it says pretty much the same thing. It gives most of the same details that Mark, the 5th chapter, does. And it kind of ranks it out, except it said that his daughter was 12 years of age. See, so these people knew and learned these facts, a lot of it. And so some of them will say differently. I know I've had my brother, some of the things I went through when I was in school and different things, so how God blessed me and stuff. He sometimes would be telling my life story to others about how God had blessed and how God did things in my life. And I'm living and I'm listening to him tell my story. And boy, it's really impressive what he be saying and not accurate. I mean, that's the way he saw it, the way he saw the miracles of God, the way he saw and believed what God did and blessed. It sounded really impressive and good. A lot of it wasn't accurate. But that's how he saw it through his eyes. We see things differently through our eyes. Each person sees a little different. Some people heard something maybe the other person didn't hear. So what was heard by the writer of the book of Matthew may have been slightly different, but I like the conciseness of it. That it puts it together in such a way that we understand that Jairus recognized that his daughter was dead. He recognized before the people came from his house to tell him that his daughter was dead. I think they came more or less to keep him having to bother Jesus. Let Jesus just go on and do what he's doing because your daughter's dead. You give up now. You know, Job's wife said to him, will you continue to hold to your integrity? Jesus said to him, and this is what I like. See, it doesn't say it in the book of Matthew because it never expresses, it doesn't talk about those negative friends and those negative people, those negative things. Those were negative people who came to Jairus. Jairus knew his daughter was at the point of death when he came to go get Jesus. He came to get Jesus to come to his house so that he could lay his hand on her so his daughter would live. It says in Matthew, he said to Jesus, in Matthew, it says that Jairus knew that his daughter was dead. Let's read Matthew 9 and 18 again, because that's important. He knew, Jairus knew his daughter was dead. Whether she had breathed her last breath while he was there or breathed it right after he left, Jairus knew that his daughter was dead. Let us read Matthew 9 and 18. And while he spake these things unto them, behold, there cometh a certain ruler who worship him, saying, my daughter is even now dead. He didn't say she was dying. Jairus said, my daughter is even now dead. He told Jesus that his daughter was dead. He didn't let Jesus have no false expectations. He came and told Jesus that his daughter is dead. That's what he came and told him. My daughter is now dead. That's what he came and told him. She is dead. That's what he told Jesus. He said, my daughter is even now dead. Jesus came there expecting to find, would have come to his house expecting to find Jairus' daughter dead, because that's what Jairus told him. Jairus told him, my daughter is even now dead. Come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. He was asking Jesus to come and raise her from the dead because he came and told Jesus, my daughter is even now dead. She just died, in other words. Jairus knew she was dead. Now, what they seem to be saying in the books of Mark and Luke is like they was giving Jairus new information. Jairus knew his daughter was dead. It wasn't he was confused. They came to just stop him from bothering Jesus. Jesus don't need to even come to the house because she's dead. But Jairus knew she was dead. He said it. And that's what I'm saying. He said in Luke and Matthew 5 and 8 and 9 and 18, my daughter is even now dead. Jairus told Jesus, my daughter is even now dead. He said, but come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. He said, she is dead. She is even now dead. But if you come and lay your hand, he didn't wait for her body to get cold and stiff. He came to get Jesus while her body was yet warm. Before she got cold and stiff. Her blood was still warm in her veins. Although it wasn't moving, it was still warm in her veins. It wasn't running in her veins. He asked her to come. He asked Jesus to come and jumpstart her, bring life back into her body, because her blood was still warm in her body. She was still warm. She still looked like, I said, she still felt like a human being. She felt like she was alive, although he knew she was dead. He said, my daughter is even now dead. And so if she wasn't dead, he knew she was dead by now. He said, now she's dead. I came to get you because she's dying and she's dead now. He said, but if you come and lay your hand on her, she shall live. So that's what he recognized. He came to Jesus to heal her and raise her up. And that's what we need to understand today. The Lord can heal us and raise us up. We thank God for this today. Hopefully, if I shed some light on this and made this a little more clear, I'm going to continue to work on these and continue to stress these important things, because I want God to be real in your life. I want to be real in your soul. And sometimes, as I say, we see things differently, but we continue to read and study the word and try to look up to God, trust in him. Let him bring us out. We thank God for you today. Going to go out singing a song. I want to live so God can use me. I want to live so God can use me. I want to live so God can use me. anytime and anywhere. I want to live so God can use me. I want to live so God can use me. I want to live so God can use me. Anytime and anywhere. I want to live so God can use me. I want to live so God can use me. I want to live so God can use me. Anytime and anywhere. Y'all have a good day. I'll be back at 12 o'clock if y'all want to join me for the 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock live. I'll be on from 12 to 3 today. God bless you. Have a good day.